Good evening, friends. I hope your day has been blessed and restful, that your Sabbath has been everything that it has needed to be. Friends, welcome. I know we don't usually post videos like this on Sunday evenings, but like I said in church, I'd like to give an announcement, an unveiling, an update, whatever you want to call it, about something that I'm really excited about, which is small groups. Whether you know it or not, one of the reasons that I loved seminary is because I could explore how we become more mature in our faith. That was the focus for me. But friends, I want to talk about small groups tonight, and especially what I think our church's vision of small groups might be. So if you've been interested since this morning, if your appetite has been wet with more information about how we are going to do this, stick around. Let's talk about it. And I'm excited to see kind of where we end up. But by small groups, I really do mean a group of people who are intent on spiritual formation, on growing more mature in our faith with one another. So a few disclaimers right from the get-go. These groups are not to replace any other groups. If you already go to a Bible study, if you already go to Sunday school, those are very specifically to help us learn and grow in our knowledge. These small groups, however, have a slightly different and more focused purpose than that. So that's the first thing, is we're not replacing any groups with these small groups. They are an added thing. The second disclaimer is that these small groups are not just another coffee clutch. They're not just another group where you go to catch up on the local news, that they do have a purpose and a function. And these are not some of the activity groups or the programs necessarily that we have in church already. They might look similar, but again, it all comes back to the purpose of the small group. And I think at its essence, at its core, at least for us, this is what the small group truly needs to be. The purpose of the small group is to grow in our faith, to engage in spiritual formation, to become more mature as Christians, so that we might look more like Christ today than we did yesterday. And we may look even more like Christ tomorrow than we do today. An added benefit of all that is that in the midst of it, we will build community, and we will help equip and empower the leaders of the church to help guide us through whatever life throws at us. So, friends, you might be asking yourself, well, that sounds great and all, but why? Why do we need this? Why now, of all times? Friends, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I do want to be fairly blunt when I do say this, or hopefully blunt with graciousness, right? Life is not as it should be. There are gaps and holes within our communities and our societies, and even within ourselves, that don't seem to be filled easily. See, someone said something very interesting about this whole season of COVID. They said, this pandemic has not broken us. It's not the thing that broke us. What it's done is it has shown us the areas that we have already been broken. Or put another way, this season of life that we're in has revealed to us the places where sin has done damage and corroded our spirits, both individual and communal. See, throughout these last 6 months or so, talking with many people in our congregations, from people from other churches, talking with other pastors, even talking with people outside of the church, I've noticed some things. There's a lot of frustration and fear. There's a lot of disappointment and loneliness. That people feel more disconnected now than they ever have before. These aren't new feelings, but they have been incredibly highlighted by our current circumstances. Friends, there's hope. There's a possibility to not only overcome these challenges, but also to heal from them and be stronger and better and further along in our journey for it. Friends, I believe in my depths, I truly believe this, that habits are incredibly powerful, but also that how we grow in groups overcomes every single one of these issues, and we're better for it. That small groups may not be the whole solution. It may only be a part of what God is calling us to, but it is an important and an integral part nonetheless. That if we want to heal our society, if we want to heal our churches and be stronger and better and holier, God is calling us to be connected in these ways. So you might be asking yourself, what do I mean by small groups? How many people? When do we meet? How often do we meet? What does this look like? Where do we meet? What? Give me the details, right? This is great, Pastor Luke, but let's actually talk about it now. So what I mean by small groups is 3 to 8 people, with 5 or 6 really being the sweet spot, but 3 to 8 people gathering on a regular, consistent basis. I don't mean once a month. That might not be often enough, but I certainly don't mean daily. That's probably not feasible. Honestly, weekly is probably the appropriate amount of time to meet with this group of people. And what I hope we find, because I've seen it in my own life with other small groups that I've been a part of, is that there will be the movement of the Spirit in these groups, that there will be some real itches that get scratched or some real spots that get hit, that we might find not only do we enjoy them, but that it's life-giving, that it really helps us connect with each other and learn more about each other and grow in our faith and give us a sense of meaning and purpose, that if we miss a week, that we'll feel like we've actually missed out on something that we need. So a group of 3 to 8 people meeting weekly to talk about their faith. Now there's 3 components really that I think are important. The first is that we talk about our faith. Where is God? Who is God? How is the Spirit working in this world? What has Christ done in my life lately? Why has this happened? How is God in the midst of all of this? Those deep questions, those why questions, those spiritually how questions are an important part, and probably the most important part of all of this. But it's not the only part. The other parts that are necessary are sharing our lives with one another. There's a real good Methodist question. Maybe you've heard it before, but it's this. How is it with your soul? How's your spirit? Maybe you've heard that before, but I think it cuts to the heart to ask, what are your highs this week? What are your lows this week? What are you hopeful for? What are you worried about? What has brought tears to your eyes and joys to your heart since we have last met? We've got to learn, and we've got to find ways to open up to one another, to trust one another, to be there for each other and care for each other in the midst of anything. And so that's another equally important and integral part to this. But the third part is that I think we need to learn how to pray with one another, how to talk with God and with each other, to express the deepest longings of our hearts, that not only that God may listen and be moved, that he might start to bring about what is good and holy and pure for us, but that we might be changed. That if we pray for peace in our nation, that we might become more peaceful people. Or if we pray for holiness and commitment, that we might become more committed. So 3 to 8 people meeting weekly, talking about our faith, our lives, and praying with one another. That's the core. That's the basis. And it can take just about any form that you could imagine. I've got friends and colleagues who, believe it or not, meet in a bar for a small group. Usually you can find them in the corner making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the free or reduced lunch kids in their school district, while also talking about faith and sharing a drink and inviting other people in. But it doesn't need to just look like that. It could be cooking a meal with each other. There's a lot of bonding that happens in the kitchen. In fact, it's one of the first places whenever I get together with friends, we always find ourselves not in the living room, not in the lounge, not on the porch, but it's the kitchen that we all gather in and talk for a good hour before we really go and settle in. So what would it look like to cook and share a meal with each other while we talk about our faith and pray with one another? But it doesn't even need to be that. It could be a traditional Bible study. It could be kind of what we've known, or you could go fishing with people and do it then. Or you could, a slow pitch softball team might be too many people, but what does 4 people bowling together look like? Sharing faith and a time to really grow as Christians with one another. So hopefully you kind of see where I'm going with this, is whatever would get you up and out or get you to invite people in. What is that thing that would draw you together with other people so that you could use it as an excuse to grow in your faith? So a couple other things that I do want to talk about as well. We've nearly covered most of it. And of course, if you have any questions, if you're interested in this, reach out to me. I would love to get you connected with people. We've already got people who have kind of committed to forming some of these small groups. And my hope is that eventually everyone in our church can be connected in some way. I'm not so naive to think that this will happen overnight. But friends, I'm committed to this vision. I'm committed to this dream because I believe God is calling us here. So one of the other things, though, that I need to mention is that these groups will be led by you all. This isn't to say that we're going to throw you into the deep end and hope that you can swim, but rather, let's look at it this way. If there was a group of 4 people that wanted to start a small group and they came to me and they said, Pastor Luke, we want to start a small group, the first thing that I'll say, and you can hold me to this, the first thing that I would say would be, that's fantastic. Who's going to facilitate it? Which one among you 4 is going to help lead it? And from there, you would choose who you would want to basically call the group together, make sure that everyone knows where you're meeting, when you're meeting, but also to ask questions and to make sure that everyone feels included. We don't do this alone. We don't walk this life or this journey without others. And so one of the other commitments that these churches are making with this program is that we're not throwing you to the wolves. We're not hanging you out to dry. We will walk with you and give you all the resources and all the encouragement and all of the abilities that we can, that we will help each group be the best that it can be. That's partly my role as pastor, but there will be a time for the people, we're going to call them facilitators, but the people who will facilitate these small groups, there will be a time for everyone to come together who is leading so that we can grow with each other, that we can talk about our hopes and our dreams and what we're struggling with and what we're triumphing over. But you will not do this alone. There's no need to be fearful that, in fact, we will walk with you. The other thing that needs to be said is I'm not going to put you into groups. I think you can remember back to your school days when you were put into a school project group, and you didn't really want to be there, and it really was kind of an awful experience, and it's probably why everyone hates groups now. I'm not here to put you into groups. What I am here to do, though, is to encourage you and to help you see the benefit and the necessity of small groups and help you think through what that might look like. If you're interested and you don't have anyone, come to me anyway and say, Pastor Luke, I want to be a part of a small group or start one and I don't know where to start. I will sit down and help you figure that out. But I'm not going to put you into groups because I think you're all adults and I think you can do that. And I think you can do that really well because a lot of this will come down to, can we be comfortable with each other? So that's the basic structure, that 3 to 8 people once a week, that we're talking about faith and sharing our lives, and that we're praying with one another, and that there will be leaders leading the group, and then it could look like anything. Whatever the Spirit is moving you to do, have fun with it. I'm going to enjoy it, that's for sure. A couple last few things before we kind of close this up. Like I said, I'm committed to this. If this takes a while, this takes a while. That's okay. But I think this is an important first step, that perfect is the enemy of good, and we've got to start somewhere. And so let's start here. I've got some other things that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, making sure that we can overcome those challenges, but I wouldn't worry about it. I think we'll do great. I think you're all already a bunch of caring and faithful people, and that I think we will encounter God in the midst of this. So, I've taken up enough of your night already, but I did want to share my excitement and where the Spirit, I think, is moving and inviting you into this. More information will come. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Like I said, I love this stuff. I love spiritual formation. It is something that brings me life. So, I love to talk about it. But, friends, may you know above everything else that you are loved. You're not only loved by God. You're not only loved by church, but you're loved by the people in it, me included. That I pray for you and I hope the best for you, and that this is something, a labor of love, not only from me, but from your leadership, that we hope that you will be filled, that you know that even though I have not called you by name right now, that you are not forgotten, that you are in our prayers and on our hearts, and that we long for the day when we can be fully united, fully reunited with each other and with God and ourselves, and that these small groups are a foretaste of the kingdom and the community to come. So, friends, may God go with you. May you go with God. May you connect with one another and care for each other and bear one another's burdens. Because I have all the faith in the world in God that the Spirit is moving and that we will walk with it. So, friends, be well, wash your hands, pray without ceasing, bear one another's burdens, and may you know that you're loved by God and that you are invited to start this small group journey with all of us. Friends, grace and peace. We'll see you when we see you.